Good morning and welcome to the press conference for The Girl with the Needle screening and competition at the 2024 Cannes Film Festival. I will introduce our guests who have brought us this extraordinary movie. I'll start with, at the other end of the table, with the producer. She's brought us TV series such as Dag and Nat, and Bullshit, Marlene Blenkhoff. Next to me, also a producer, he produced Magnus's first two features, Mariusz Wlodarski. And next to him, in the role of an enigmatic candy seller who's far more mysterious and darker than anything from the Brothers Grimm, she's first appeared at Cannes in the 1998 Jury Prize winner, The Celebration. Since then, she's appeared in far too many films to mention. I'll point out 2010's A Better World, 2012's A Royal Affair, and in 2019, Queen of Hearts, in the role of Dagmar, Trine Dyrholm. She appeared in the Cannes in 2022 in the role of Godland. She was also in Winter Brothers in 2017, among many other roles. It's a huge pleasure to introduce, in the role of Caroline, the actress Vic Carmenzona. And finally, the director and co-scriptwriter. He also acts in the film. Both of his...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Both of his previous features screened in Cannes in 2015. We saw The Hereafter, and in 2020, it didn't screen in Cannes. It was part of the Cannes selection, Sweat. It's a pleasure to introduce director Magnus van Horn. Magnus, I don't mean to be trite, but on a personal level, the film takes place after World War I, after this global festival of destruction. Your film, previous film, was caught up in another global catastrophe. What's it like to be here in person and to, is it a vindication? Is it finally, I'm here to...
Yeah, it finally feels very, very real. It's something we really missed in 2020, the physical experience, because Cannes helped a lot with promoting the film globally in very difficult times. But yesterday was amazing, and it compensates emotionally for everything, and physically to walk the steps and to sit in the cinema wearing really nice clothes, and this room full of so many people and them standing up. That's what it's about, an audience and a screen. So it was really amazing.
You're also here with a number of other collaborators who I haven't introduced yet. They're sitting in the front row because there's not enough room on the podium for them all. I'll start at the left with DOP Mikkel Dimek, an extraordinary... Next to him, actor Besir Zeciri. It's wonderful to see you looking... Co-scriptwriter Lina Langebeck. The film's editor, Agnieszka Glinska. Line producer, Deborah Marlowe. Producer, Michael Reeks, who asked not to be introduced. And finally, the marketing manager, Emily Jablonski. Magnus, I could also ask you...
And we also have Tessa, Hoder, right here, playing Frida in the film.
Magnus, what brought you to this story?
Well, in the beginning, what brought me the story was Lina and Marlene, who had a very strong idea of to make a film about something that happened in Denmark a long time ago. And that story was, in a way, so horrific and provocative to me, especially since I have kids of my own, and I could at first sight like not how to tell this story or how to make a story about this crime or inspired by these crimes. And that to me was a huge challenge, how to find a way to tell that story on a human level, as well as on an interesting visual level. And I think the topic matter at the beginning set me out to make, I felt I wanted to make a horror movie. I've always dreamed of making a horror movie, but since I get involved in a long development process, and in the end I'm very interested in human beings and the characters. I get involved in developing them enough to switch it away from clear genre, and it becomes something else. I really enjoy that process. That's discovery for me, and it's taking something that feels, in a way, in this case, so horrible, and to make something human about it, or to look for the humanity in it, or what is it about, and how to complicate it beyond the borders of how it's, packaged in the beginning. So that also opens up the story to, in that process, to how it connects to today. It was also very inspiring to make a costume drama, something that happened in a world that, in a way, doesn't look the same anymore. I've never done that. I had just done a film that was very contemporary with a lot of social media, and I wanted to move as far away from that as possible, and that was period or costume, and black and white, since the previous film was mostly pink. And it was also very kind of dynamic, so I wanted to, or like spontaneous in a way in its shooting, and I wanted to make something now that was very meticulously planned and choreographed and thought out.
You mentioned the long pre-production and production process. Perhaps I could ask Trine and Vic, when did you first get involved in the project? What were your thoughts? How did Magnus present the characters to you?
You start.
I start. Well, I have actually been involved a couple of times because we had a meeting, a very nice meeting, when the script was at an early stage. And at that time, I couldn't really see Dagmar because she was not that. She was not so fremkaldt. How do you say that? She was not so developed yet. So then, a couple of years later, we had some more meetings, and here we are. I mean, it was when I got the last script. It was just one of the best scripts I've ever read, actually, because it's so complex. And for me, I am of course familiar with Dagmar because she's a historical figure, and a lot of people have tried to do something about her, fiction or like film. But I really like the take that you follow Caroline, and then Dagmar becomes just like the consequence of the structural, of the social structures, and I mean, yeah. So I have actually been involved for many years, but many times, but yeah, I've been in the shadow and giving notes and talks with you, and it has just been such an amazing journey with this film, really, yeah.
Can I just add something? Because on that first meeting, when Trine said it's too early, we were having lunch, and we were speaking about Dagmar, and you took up a toothpick and you were sitting with it and you were doing something where we were speaking, and you gave me a little window into, I think, in my opinion, I don't know if you agree.
You saw Dagmar.
I saw Dagmar.
Oh my God, I don't know what that means.
And then you
Thank
said,
you.
But Magnus, it's too early. So it gave me very good motivation to, go back
keep
and
on writing,
keep on
yeah.
writing and then come back because, I could see no one else as Dagmar from that point.
Carolina.
Well, so I heard about the toothpick. I think, correct me if I get this wrong, but I got an email about like 3 years before we started shooting, if I wanted to do like a casting, and it was very intuitively. It was not a lot of information. It was before Sweat. I hadn't heard about Magnus, but it was just the way that the email was written. I was like, I connect to this, and then I got the role. Got to meet Magnus, talk to him, and read the script, and then I was like, absolutely. And then because of like financing and development and stuff, it was for like a long time that I was the only one cast. And I'm a really good friend with Trine, and has been for like, 10 years now. And of course we talk a lot, and you're like, oh yeah, that project. And then and then Magnus said the toothpick story a couple of times, and then when it came to the point of casting Dagmar, I was like, but what about Trine? And Magnus was like, yeah, she said no. And then I asked Trine, I was like, Trine, did you say no? You're like, no, I didn't say no. I just said that, like, keep me posted and let's see where the story. And then I go back to Magnus and I was like, she didn't say no. I was like, yeah, I don't want to bother her, but like, she didn't. I was like, just talk to each other. Like. And then that happened, and so that was beautiful. And I heard the toothpick story many times. I keep repeating, but it's very special. And I can imagine, and I think it's been wonderful. Since I got the role, what is it? It is 3 years ago. Yeah,
Yes.
it is. Then me and Magnus have been really tight, and I've had the pleasure of like following every draft. We've been talking sometimes like many days a week. Then sometimes you like go into a mouse hole, and then I'm like, "Are you okay, boss?" And you're like, "Yes, sir." Like, and then after like you come with the draft, and then we do like long Zooms, and you have had many trips to Copenhagen. It's been extremely privileged and a very collaborative and respectful and fun journey. Yeah, so.
But I would also like, it's also important to add that I had not worked in Denmark before, and since Vic, we were like got on board so early, it was also an introduction to Denmark for me. Through a lot of people introduced me to a lot of very creative people who work now on the film. Vic introduced me to Besir, who is sitting right here, who is playing Peter, which is a great choice, and so it's been a great collaboration on many levels as well.
Thank you. I'm going to open this up to the journalists present. We have a first question in the second row.
Hi, Gunnar Railing from Sweden. Thank you for a truly great film. And one of the things that really makes it so good is also the music, which is very ominous. It underscores the feeling of dread the whole film through. Could you talk a bit about the music and about the composer?
Well, Friederike Hofmeier is also someone Vic introduced me to. It's a friend of hers, who's an amazing composer, musician, who goes by the name of Pusemary. And her music was, when I was at early stages with the film, the only music I listened to while writing or working was electronic music. It was not at all music it was music that I felt fit to the emotions of the film, but not to the period. And I knew there was something I wanted to keep. And after I started listening to Friederike's music, I felt it was extremely interesting, and it put me on an emotional journey, really to an inside of the characters that didn't at all connect with the outside. And I felt that was really fresh, and it was something that corresponded to my idea of how the film should be watched. And collaborating with her also took that journey, I think, really much further. I think it also makes the film, even as the music progresses within the film and it ends up something very modern, and it also helps the film connect stronger to today. I think it makes the audience also look at the film or think about the film in a different way, which is the reason for it, but also that it's very internal. It's an internal music.
The sound is as stylized as the visuals are. Footsteps have never been so ominous in a film. Tell us about working with the sound designer.
Well, with Oscar Skriver, it's also been a very, artistic collaboration, and it was really fun to think about. We did that with cinematographer, with Michał Dymek as well, how to use references from the time or how to use our perception of old cinema or the world a long time ago in a way. Not specifically what year or when, but to use elements that bring us back to something we feel is from the past world. And that's, Foley work, footsteps, certain sounds are louder, creating like very low atmospheres. And using the sound also in that way to, it builds tension, but I think it also connects us to images from back in the days, as well as we do many kind of small little references we have built into the film that also bring us back. The same as our inspirations have been photography from that time. Black and white fits also my idea of that world. If it was a film about a painter during Renaissance, it would be color for sure, because I see that world in color, but this world is completely imprinted in my head as black and white.
Thank you. We have a question on the left.
Oh, watch out.
Hello, I'm Gabriela Bravo from Chile, Culturizarte. Je vais poser la question en français. Si
I'll put my question in French.
We have earphones if you need a translation.
Félicitations pour votre
Congratulations on your film. It's a magnificent film.
J'ai vu que vous avez soigné énormément
I think you took great care
photographie.
with the photography.
Est très soignée, très jolie.
The artistic side is very beautiful and very well done. And you actually show something which is perfectly horrible and very sad at the same time. I'd like to know how you worked on this part of the photography in such a beautiful manner to depict something that perhaps we might prefer not to see.
Well, I think, Michał, if you want to say something at this moment, feel free to add whatever you want. The question is about... But I can start. I can start by. He has a microphone there. Yeah.
Michał, there you go.
But I can start by saying, we work with Michał. It's our second film we do together. So it's also a collaboration that is very close between us, and Michał is involved in the project at a very early stage. When the script is not ready, he's also part of developing this idea and this film. And so when we start speaking about what kind of film we want to do in the beginning, I think it was important for us to take the audience on a time travel that fit that, because all too often we said that we don't feel that in costume films. We feel the scenography, we feel the costume, we don't really believe in the world we live in. And we wanted to create something that, use the elements that for us make that world believable on screen. And that was the beginning. Maybe Michał, you want.
I would add maybe that we were very focusing on creating our own black and white impression for this film. We wanted to recreate it world in the black and white tones in our own new level. So I think it was a very interesting process with Magnus when together during like, you know, almost like 2 years, we were talking about like, what does it mean? You know, I will repeat a little bit what Magnus said before, basing on old photography, like going back to our favorite films, diving into like what's the most like exciting for us in this like way of storytelling, and also like, you know, from like very general perspective, this film is very like, you know, visual, but we try to be very honest with ourselves, and what was the most important, honest with storytelling, and try to follow the emotions and the story, the plot of the film, and not to be too much visual. Like, you know, we want to be as much as possible emotional, like, you know, have as much as possible emotional and true approach for storytelling, I think.
And I want to add some things. Stop me if I'm speaking too long now. But it's also, I think we were using reference. We wanted to make something where we focused a lot on the mise en scène, really make a film that felt thought through. That also goes hand in hand with using or being inspired by methods that were again used back in the days of ways of working with set design. We were building miniatures for this film at smaller sizes to shoot buildings. There's a lot of VFXs in the film that you don't see, but they are there to be invisible and to recreate this feeling. We also looked at, I mean, just to mention like 2 films I think that were important for us, so Schindler's List and David Lean's Oliver Twist from 1948. Both of those have, I think, are very inspiring when it comes to how scenes are made, organized, shot, and how they evolve.
Also, hello? And also Nick Nevoa. I don't know what's the English name of this film. It's like a Polish classic.
Nobody
right?
Calls.
Nobody Calls, directed by Kazimierz Kuc. And what's also funny, like, you know, an interesting like detail is that we shot it like our film, the same city, in Poland. And we also were very inspired by. I was personally very inspired by this film, and it was such a nice coincidence that we could do the same film, like in the same space. It's amazing.
Vic, for you, when you're working on a historical character like this, is it different from preparing for a contemporary role? And do you look for models in older films or in other films when you're going back to that era? How do you prepare?
I mean, I think it's a, I don't know if I can answer it like as a general question, because I think every film and every director in collaboration calls for a different approach from me. For this film, it was something that we talked about a lot. And we also discovered like throughout developing and shooting the film, I think for me and Magnus, we always talked about that Caroline was in a way, how can I say this, like extremely complex human being as any human being are. And therefore we actually did not deep dive so much into the period, because it was more about something else. And I think also like Magnus and Michał just explained about like the cinematography, the black and white, that was more in a way the time reference. Although there are like, I would say, a lot of also playing with the fairy tale elements. For instance, when, yeah, I can explain maybe like this, that the dress, Carolina's dress, that's a big moment for her. And we always like, sometimes I feel like me and Magnus, because we know each, like we have had so many endless conversations. So sometimes I don't even remember if we spoke about this or if we just, in a way, but anyway, so Gosha, who did the costumes, when we had the first costume test, the dress was already like pretty fancy, and we just like shimmer, like silver, a bow, and I was like, Cinderella mistress, like more and more and more. And then I remember in the end, and I said, okay, imagine Jørgen, who is the man who bought the dress for her, if it was today, he would go to, again, Provocateur, and he would find like the most like stereotypical like female underwear with laces and bows and push-up and bras. And I think that's what the dress should resemble. And she was like, got it, you know? And I think with this film, in so many ways, it was very dynamic in terms of the time period and how to approach that. And I really feel that I also, sometimes I don't know if it's more of an intuition or thought and what comes first, the analysis or the like motion, but it's something about that Caroline is in a situation, of course, like in a time and age where women, blah, 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 but it's not that different to a lot of women or people today in so many different aspects and capacities. So I also, sometimes I didn't even make the link that it was like a period film, because I think it's something about her that is so extremely universal, and I'm really proud of having co-created like a character who is, whatever circumstance and situation, she has this sort of like inner drum that goes like, there's more to life than this. There's more to life than this. And I think it's very inspiring. Yeah. And then you can say maybe at some point she's like opportunist, or like, what is the actual good life? But the way that she just endure, and she do not settle. I mean, there's so many times where she sort of like created a situation and she couldn't foresee the consequences, and she ends up in a completely different place, but at the same time she's always like, I want a good life. And then she kind of sees what is around me and how can I, with these like building blocks, create a good life. Which I think was wonderful from Line and Magnus, to have that like protagonist from a period film, in a way, because we've always been here. Like sometimes I feel like I'm everyone. That's kind of how I sometimes with her, and yeah. So that was a long answer to that question.
Thank you so much, Malena. You wanted to add something.
I just want to add that, you know, with a film like this, I think we also have to point out the fact that we don't start the film with saying Denmark 1920, because what we really want is that it resonates today. Whenever it takes place, I mean, it's mentioned it's after the First World War, but I think it's done beautifully, you know, by Magnus, and with, you know, a tool with everybody to say this is really important. This film is about all the. At some point, we had a working title called The Unwanted, and I think that was a really important tool for all of us actually to say this is a film about all the people that are unwanted in the world, that has difficulties to make it, and how do they cope with the, you know, with the day we live, with the life we're living. And it's interesting to set it at that time, because we all knew that women had a, you know, tough time. We all knew they had, you know, tough lives. We had the circus with all the people that can't really function in the normal society. And I think what has been really done, really, really lovely, and you also talk about the black and white, is actually say, how do we put the attention from the beauty of life and to the cruelty of life? And I think that really resonates, you know, in the black and white as such as well, you know, being, you know, where the opposites meets. And I think that's the essence of the you can say the success of the film, and how it really tells the story, and what we should learn from it today when we actually see it. Because and I think everybody can reflect to some character in this film. And I think that's really, you know, the actors, yeah, as you say, this mise en scène, it was, from the beginning, it was really to the point in that sense.
Trine, your character is so rooted in her society, and it's also timeless, this figure. We know nothing about her past. Did you and Magnus work out a backstory? Was it something that was important to you?
Well, we actually know a lot about her past in real life, because she is a real person. and I've read a book about her many years ago, so I, of course, read that again. But here, again, I mean, the references Magnus gave me was actually Fagin in Oliver Twist. This way of being unpredictable and fairy tale-ish. And you also showed me Lighthouse, and you showed me The Exorcist. And, you know, no, but actually it was so inspiring with all these references, because she is a very special character. And I mean, because she's not the lead also, you don't want to know a lot about her. I mean, you just want to understand what she's struggling with. And then she does stuff that is horrible. And how to make a human out of that, in a way. That has been what I'm interested in, as always. I don't want to defend the actions of the characters, but I want to invite the audience into the inner chaos of the character. So for me, of course, it's always about putting some existential loneliness. She must be extremely lonely, this woman. And then she sees potential in this young woman. She could maybe take over the business, or she could take care of her child. I believe that she loves her own child very much, but she knows that she's not capable of being a real mom. So, I mean, we actually also know that she was raped when she was a child, and she has a very tough story in real life. But of course, she is also mental. How do you say that? Yeah, well, I mean, something is wrong also, I mean, in the moral perspective. But I think that she believes that she does something good, as Caroline believes in how to make a good life. And I mean, in the end, when she stands in the courtroom and says, well, what else to do with all these unwanted children? And I think that she is, I mean, the way that she was very good at telling stories, maybe not true stories, that also we know. And I find that very beautiful, actually, that she calmed down all the young women and sent them out of the door with the good story, so they can believe that their children have a good life. And then, of course, the tragedy is that it was not like that, but she believes in it, or she tries to. Yeah, it's a very complex character. but I just want to say one thing with the mise en scène that I'm very happy with. And I think that's very clever of Magnus to not be too explicit with the crime, and it's done in such a tasteful way, and it's so moving and so feelable what is going on. But you don't sit like this, you know. And I really find that important with this film. Yeah, because some heavy crime is going on in this film. So.
Thank you very much. We have a question on the right.
Hello, it's all right. It's a question from Hungary, and it is to the director. In your previous film, Sweat, you explored the female identity through the expression of the body, and pretty much this movie, The Girl with the Needle, is about that too. I mean, it has the same thematic elements. So, why did you decide that you would like to stick in that thematic element? Thank you.
Well, I think I will stick in that element all through my life, not only with a woman as a main character, but with men as main character. I feel it's something that has been, I mean, not even to take it further, it's about, I think, people who are desperately looking for love, or to be hugged, to be held, to be taken care of, It's what they want deep inside, but between what they want deep inside and what's available in the outside world, there's such a huge wall, barrier, that would be an obstacle to get over in a film, or how to reach that, what's on the other side. It's a very kind of internal conflict, and I find I keep returning to that unconsciously every time I want to, or I think of a story that interests me. That's what I find interesting. And of course, I think your reference is, your comparison is really valid. I think in Sweat, as in The Girl with the Needle, it's very similar on some level. The packaging is completely different, which is the challenge of filmmaking and all that means. But inside it has, I think, a lot of similarities. So to answer your question, it's not a choice; it just happens.
Thank you. We have a question on the left.
Okay. So, hello, my name is Pam Serbest. I'm a Kurdish journalist from Rudal Media Network. My question is for Magnus. Can you share with us a memorable moment from the set of the film that you will always cherish? Like something that you will not forget.
He doesn't remember anything.
No.
I blacked out. I don't remember anything. Let's say.
A good question.
Yeah. I even haven't thought about it. I think what I liked, or maybe not liked the most, but what I thought was really impressive, it was when we did some of the exterior street scenes, and with a lot of extras, and our main actresses, like within those scenes, and I saw them working in a way that I feel this looks right. I could see it in the monitor that I felt this is gonna work visually, because that had also been, in a way, my biggest worry was how to capture this world, because I'm not so worried with very talented actresses delivering on set in that sense. But it's like to catch that world was to spread enough dirt on the roads, to get the smoke going, to get all the extras in the right costumes, to get the right amount of atmosphere on those streets. We spent so much time on looking for locations. So I think when I saw on the monitor that, the world is existing in some of the shots, for example, when they're walking just after the scene in the bathhouse, coming out, Dagmar and Caroline, and I feel, this has the right atmosphere. It's going to work. In other shots, we needed to use, of course, some things like crowd multiplications and things, but this shot it's completely, in a way, analog. What we see is what we had. And we know it is one shot, and we have set it up, and it's also very important references in that shot that me and Michał know about. And so that was huge pleasure when all the extras walk together and suddenly you get this shot that is just perfect timing, where you feel it's some movie magic, and then a car passes at the right moment, and you feel. So that was very memorable, I would say.
I remember. I'm sorry to ask.
But also, I would say, sorry, sorry, I will let you say something. But also but I don't want to spoil anything in the film, so I will not say that.
That is cruel.
Mariusz, please.
I just remember when there was a moment, kind of like when we were filming, when Carolina walks to Dagmar's and she walks with the baby up the stairs. And Magnus was so happy with this. There was some kind of like magical moment in that he grabbed the camera from Michał, that he allowed him, because he wanted to shoot it by himself. I remember this.
I did not know.
No, but it's you have to shoot one shot by myself.
What shot was it?
It's you walking up this.
When you were
that is so far away. Okay.
It's just I have to shoot, and maybe.
We had a packed shooting schedule, so some of the behind shots was actually our first AD. I got my costume, and then I went in like body prosthetic, and then back in. So yeah.
Maybe that was.
That is so funny.
We have one more question in the middle.
Hi. Congratulations on this great film.
Thanks.
When I went yesterday, I didn't know what the film was about. Trying not to know anything about films, and I heard people telling me, "Are you sure you want to go? It's very dark." And we heard, and then the film starts, and there are many faces on the screen, and they end up being mixed with each other, and it is very dark. And then the film starts, and anyways, I'm very happy I went. So afterwards, after watching the film, I thought, okay, this introduction, we kind of forget it completely when we dive into the story, and then we get out. It's like, oh, wow, this woman, she was wow. And then we think about the faces, and I wanted to discuss this message that you have, how they're all superposed with each other. We don't know who's who, and of course there's a monster in the film with his mask, but the real monster actually smiles all along. So what was your message with these faces in the beginning?
Well, it's exactly like you say. I think it's a very good interpretation because they morph into each other, and we find the different characters, because it's a foreseeing, it's an introduction. We see faces of people we don't know yet what function they will have in the film. Later they reappear in this ether or naphtha-fueled nightmare of Carolina. But it's the faces, we find the different faces within the different characters. And I mean, there is, as I think of the story, I mean, Carolina makes her way through the world and ends up at Dagmar. That's no coincidence. And she is not tricked into Dagmar, and she's not kidnapped by Dagmar. She goes there by her own will, and she returns by her own will, and she wants to work for her. So there is something that connects her to Dagmar. The same, there is something that deeply connects her to Peter, and that connect all these characters together. And the interesting thing about storytelling for me is to finding them within each other, and that they all reflect Carolina, the main character. They exist within her because it's a story is an internal journey, and the characters, they reflect parts of her.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, yeah. So in that way, I think that's the faces, and also because she also on another level, I think. But this is something I think I realized a bit later when we were editing the film. But that Carolina goes. I mean, it was there in the story, but I could see it. Apparently, I could see it on the screen that Carolina goes through so many different phases. It's like the faces of Carolina could be a title, and she goes on. She goes into different characters, different places where she has different faces. So that's also something that is quite dynamic or evolving through the film.
No, it's exactly that, and I've, thought a lot about also the masks, like the face on face on face, and this kind of like fairy tale, novel storytelling. Like what are the stories we're telling ourselves when we need them? And it's a lot about this kind of like psychology of mirrors. Also, mirrors became a huge part of the film, also during the shooting. Because there is this, in a way, almost kind of like Harry Potter, H.C. Anderson, we all have more or less all of the archetypes within. And then there are these different kind of like chapters where we write the narrative with what we have, but what is the actual truth? And the truth is freaking scary. You know what I mean? And so it's very meta, but in a way also, to be honest, like extremely, what is the word when something is existential, and it's not banal, but I can't find a better word, you know what I mean? And I think also these like different masks and chapters of Carolina's lives, and like Peter, Dagmar, they're also interconnected, like you're saying. And I feel like the editing that Agnieszka did, and Frederike's music, and Oscar's sounds, and Magnus, that whole thing really came together the first time I saw the film. It was like a deep psychological young shit synchronization where I was like, yeah, yes, it's very, very well made in that sense. Yeah.
Big thank you so much.
Yeah.
Magnus, you talked about connections. The film has obviously connected with audiences here. Thank you so much for bringing us the film. Thank you so much for joining us this morning to talk about it.
Thank you very much.